Hi guys, I'm here in my backyard and to explain to you one thing I use a lot in landscape photography. It is, well, I have set up a little scene here, not exactly landscape, but bear with me. So I'm also going to need a foreground. So that's going to be my foreground. You know, it didn't fit quite, so I started off too big. So my foreground goes here in the foreground, so that the wind don't take it away. So what I need is the foreground to be in focus, and I need all the ladders in the step to be in focus. My swing set should be in focus, and also the trees. How do I do this? Is it even possible, you might ask? Yes, but not with a single frame. You need multiple frames to be able to do that, and then you will focus stack those images. First of all, you might ask, why do we need this? Well, for example, if you're on a beach and you have tiny little sand ripples on the beach, you have a focal point, but you're going to use this tiny little sand ripple as foreground, like you see here in this picture. For this you have to put your camera low, point it downwards, have a wide angle lens, very important. This is 16 to 35, and that is a very good lens for that. Also, if you have a flower and a beautiful sunrise, like here, to have the flower in focus and everything until the mountain and the mountain in the background in focus, you will need to focus that. Or here, when you have ice on the water, you have methane bubbles in the ice, beautiful patterns. Just to stand up and shoot it at waist level, it's not going to be a nice picture. I want all the bubbles in focus, everything and the mountain in the background in focus. So for that you need to focus stack. So like I said, to do this with a single frame is not possible. But if the focus point is here at the knife, everything else will be out of focus. Even because the lens is so close to a foreground, I would need to put a focus on this letter and take a picture, and this letter, and this letter, a new picture. The knife, I would have to shoot one frame for the knife, focus on that, focus on this and shoot, focus on this and shoot, and probably all the steps. But as you go further, you don't need to shoot the frame as close to each other. So you might in the half or 2/3 of the ladder, you might get away with just shooting every other step. And from the last step to the swing set, it's probably just one frame. After you shoot all those frames, you need to focus stack them in Photoshop, and that is exactly what I'm going to show you in this tutorial. But before we continue, please hit that subscribe button and the notification bells to receive notification every time I upload. It really does help. I would appreciate it. Thank you. These are the images I'm going to use for this focus stack. And this is the first one, so it has the closest focus. I can see here, if I go here to the rocks here, these rocks here, everything here, it's not focused. But this first flower is. Well, this first flower, it seemed to have moved a little bit. It was not. There was a little wind, so there's always chance you can get that. But for most cases it doesn't really matter. So the next picture, I'm focused, I might be focused here on this flower, you know, and then here, and the next one on these flowers here, and on this one I see the rocks here are in focus now, and on the last one I have the waterfall and the mountain, and everything is tack sharp here. So compared to the first one, you can see this is not in focus, but this flower is, and the last one, everything in the distance is in focus, but the flowers is not. So the point of focus stacking is, like I said, to get everything tack sharp. Everything should be in focus. The last picture here is, well, I had to go so close to the ground and to the object that I lost all my sky. So I don't necessarily like my images, you know, completely. I do compose like this if there is no details in the clouds, for example, if it's just off white or very blue or something. But here I have nice clouds, you know, nice details in the clouds. So I want to keep that in. So I did, you know, it's kind of like a Vertorama, but with only 2 pictures. So I can have the ground and sky. So I was thinking I would do like maybe a 1 by 1. The aspect would be 1 by 1, you know, something like that, or even, you know, something like that. Well, we'll see after, but that's the point with the last image. It's not for the focus stack, it's just for the cloud. So I need to edit these pictures a little bit before I take them to Photoshop. I cannot focus stack in Lightroom, I have to do it in Photoshop. So I have to do, you know, some of my edits here. So I will, at least you can see here in the high contrast area, there's a slight green line. A remove chromatic aberration will take care of that for me. So now I just have the motion blur, not the green line. I might see it better in the last image. Here you can see the green line. If I put on the remove chromatic aberration, the green line just disappears completely. So, but I will just edit one picture and just then copy the edit on all the other pictures to make sure everything is exactly the same when I merge them together and I stack them together. So, also I would like to do profile corrections because it's shot with a wide angle lens. I sometimes do it, you know, it's not necessary to do it always. If you see it just looks good like that, just use it. But the problem is sometimes when it has a slight vignette. This lens here, my 16 to 35 2.8, has a slight vignette. Most of the wide angle lenses have that, so that takes the vignette away. But sometimes when I have the vignette, it shows up as darker areas in the clouds, and I do like to have vignette on some of my pictures, but I like to be in control and add it myself. So here I will lift the shadows a little bit. I like it to be flat a bit. I will, it's not clipping. Here you can see on the histogram, it's not clipping on either side, but it's very, very close. So here you can see if I lower the highlights a little bit, I get a little bit much more space here. And I would also like to lift here the tone curve for the blacks. So I have this space here and this space here. So, and the picture is flat, and that's how I like it, because when I edit the picture, you know, when you stack on all kinds of edit, it increases the contrast and increases the contrast. Everything you do will increase the contrast, and it might end up too much. So I do like when I have the raw image before I go into Photoshop. I like to take the advantage of the raw editing to flatten everything out. You can see, if I compare it with the next one, how much it changed. So even with this slight modification, I haven't really done anything. I opened up the shadows, I took the highlights a little bit away because it was a little too bright for me. I did lift the shadows in the tone curve also. And you know, let's just leave it at that. I'm gonna select everything, also the last picture, and sync it. And there's nothing like, you can just check all. I need everything to be exactly the same. Okay, sometimes I like to lower the exposure time on the sky image. This last one I took for the sky, it has 0.8 seconds, but the other one has 1.3. So why? Because to get the clouds a little darker, you know, to get a little more details in the clouds. And I even might do it a little bit more, something like that, to make sure I have information everywhere before I start to edit it. So I just select everything, right click on it, edit in, and open as layers in Photoshop. Don't get confused with edit in out of Photoshop. That will just open every file as a separate image. But I want all the photos in the same file on layers. So I do that. So here we are in Photoshop. It seems I have my my top layer here is the closest focus point here at the flower. And the last one, here you can see the flowers are not in focus, but the mountains is. Okay. And then there's the sky picture. I'm just gonna keep it for later. Now I need to select everything, all the layers. I'm gonna merge, and I'm gonna do edit, auto align layers. Very important to do this, otherwise it won't fit together. In few cases, this automatic tools in Photoshop just don't work for me, and then I just have to do it manually with layer masks. It takes longer, but you know, the result is the same. Just especially if it's windy and the flowers are moving or something is moving in the picture, it's gonna be it might not work. So it's done. You might see what happened. There's a very thin line here in all the edges of the picture, which indicates there was some movement, which is difficult to deal with if you don't do this. So edit, auto blend layers, stack images. Okay. So for the most part, it's working. I can see some problems areas right away. I can see this here has some weird colorations in it, and the top flowers here are somewhat strange. So that's good. So we have a little problem to work with. First, I'm not going to do anything more with this. I'm just going to merge visible. So I'm leaving the cloud layer, but I merged the visibles. But I'm gonna go back into Lightroom now, and I'm gonna find a photo which I like for the straw. Seems to be this one. This is fine for the straw and also for the flowers here at the end, which gave me a problem in the process. So I'm gonna edit in Photoshop, just this one photo. And then I'm just gonna select all, copy, and paste it onto the other one. I'm gonna select the two to edit auto align layers. There we go. And now I'm just gonna take the layer mask, and I'm gonna hold down the Alt key on the Mac and make everything not visible on this layer. So now I'm just gonna use a brush, just a normal paintbrush, to paint in what I want here. Maybe not. So. Here we go. A little bigger. You know, you need to there we go. Now it looks fine. And then there was here, this flower stuff here. See, a little smaller, so I don't affect too much. There we go. You see the flower is getting back in focus now. So probably what happened here is the straw which is sticking out, it moved a little bit with wind, and the flowers also. So you just need to fix that. And now I'm gonna increase the size of the work area. Just by somewhat, it doesn't really matter how much, just enough. And I'm going to take the sky layer, and I'm going to, let's just put that on the top and bring down the opacity so I can see what I'm doing here. So I'm just going to put it somewhat, it's not going to fit, you know, because the when I was pointing the camera down at the flowers, then I pointed it somewhat up for the clouds. At least the camera straight was at least straight. The camera back was at least straight, not tilted down like on the flower. So you can have some perspective distortion. So that's fine. You just need to fix that. So I'm gonna do that with free transform, edit free transform, and I'm gonna right click on it and select warp. So with warp, I'm just gonna move just warp your way through it until it fits. Ish, you know, doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be good enough. There we go. To work with warp is a practice. It really does, you just click and move the pixels. How much? Yeah, that's a practice. So I'm gonna make do with that. So now I'm gonna get my opacity back and I'm gonna put a black layer mask on the layer to make it non-visible. And I'm gonna bring a relatively big brush and I'm gonna paint in, mask in the sky. So I'm bringing it down to the mountains a little bit, and that will hide any defects I might have. Something like that. And because my brush was so big, it went a bit too far in some cases. I don't want a double river and I don't want a double waterfall. If you have a vacuum board, it's better to use that. I have it. It's always going to give you a better result. So, when you're finished, you just click on and off with the layer to see if it works. You know. And after I zoom in and I feel like I'm finished, I just merge visible, and then I cut out all the things that I don't want. So now I'm gonna do a few basic edits I do in Photoshop with my pictures. I'm not gonna do it step by step, but the exact method is in a video in the description, so you can see how I do it there. So, like I said, if you follow this tutorial on focus stacking, then you follow the next tutorial on my editing workflow. You will see everything I done after that. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope you find it useful. You know, it's we got into a little bit of problem there with the focus stacking, which is good because then I had, you know, then you could see I had to just bring in other images and masks them kind of in. Focus stacking, if it works smoothly, it's very easy. It's just, you know, you need to understand layer masks. If you're gonna do this, you need to know layer masks, and there's a lot of material on YouTube which you can go in depth in layer masks. I don't have a specific tutorial for that yet, but I might someday. So, like I said, enjoy. You know, use this. This is these are very, very cool images. These layer stack images with the focus all the way through from the foreground to the background. tack sharp. They look very clean and they look very nice. And so do practice this stuff. You just need to go out and just go out in your backyard or something and find some foreground and just to practice. Thank you. Goodbye.